Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Spooks with Mitch. Welcome if you are new here. My name is Mitch, and today I am going to be talking about my 24-hour experience in the REAL Conjuring House, which is pending. It is coming up, and I'm also going to be sharing with you guys how you can go to the real life Conjuring House yourself and experience some of the stuff that I'm going to be experiencing. So, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the Conjuring movie, which was released in 2013. It was a huge box office hit. We were really first introduced to Ed and Lorraine Warren in these films, which actually blasted off into a huge Conjuring world, which was, like Annabelle, The Nun, Conjuring 2, Conjuring 3. They have some other films coming out this year and next. So what I think makes The Conjuring so cool is that the Conjuring movie is centered around the Perron family, who move into this farmhouse in Connecticut, and they suddenly start experiencing all of these crazy paranormal events. They reach out to the Warrens, and the Warrens come in and investigate the house. Now, what is so cool about this Hollywood story is that it's based on true events. And I know what you're thinking, every horror movie that comes out from Hollywood these days is based on true events. But this movie actually is. Lorraine Warren was actually a huge consultant on the film, and she verified that most of the events that took place in the film took place in real life, which is scary if you've ever seen that film. What really got me interested is what happened to this house to make it so haunted. I mean, yes, you move into a house and it's just haunted, but you don't just move into a house and it be haunted. With my experience on anything kind of paranormal or haunted houses or haunted locations, there is always a backstory. There is always some sort of crazy, horrible event that happened there to make it haunted, because let's face it, if, ghosts are usually formed around tragic events. By definition, spirits are usually, ghosts are usually the spirits of tormented and trapped souls who haven't moved on, or sometimes don't even know that they're dead. So with that being said, I really got curious about what happened at this house to make it such a paranormal hotspot. I started doing a little bit of research, and I was not disappointed. So after doing a little bit of digging on everything that's kind of happened at this farmhouse in Connecticut, I was just blown away by the amount of things that have actually happened there and the very, very tragic and kind of horrific history that this place has. I was very, very right in my instincts that something happened way before the parents got into this house, and I've put it all in kind of a timeline for you. Now, I'm going to let you guys know some of the information that I have is very iffy. It's very scattered. I had to do a lot of digging. I had to kind of piece together this timeline because it's not clear at all. There's so many counter stories. There's so many stories out there and claims from the Perron family. One of the Perron daughters actually wrote a 3-series book about it. There's counterclaims to it. There's residents that live in it now that are also disputing the claims that have been made there. So I just really had to piece it all together and just kind of base in fact what is actual fact and what I can actually report to you in full confidence actually happened at this place. Bear with me, I'm going to try and lay it out for you. So the very, very first residents of this house were the Arnolds. It was built in 1836, and it was dubbed the Arnold Manor because the Arnolds built it and they lived in it. This house is actually massive. It's a 14-bedroom farmhouse. It's crazy, crazy big. So the very first death that was documented in this house is probably the most tragic of them all. When I first read about this, I was horrified. I had no idea that this happened in this house. Maybe some of you do. Maybe some of you do know a little bit more about The Conjuring than I did, but I was still thoroughly shocked. So the Arnolds had quite a large family. I mean, you would have to fill a 14-bedroom house, but one of the youngest daughters, her name was Prudence Arnold. She was 11 years old. You know, it was a different time, and arranged marriages were kind of a thing. There was, you know, a shorter life expectancy. So Prudence Arnold was said to be engaged to a man named William E. Knowlton. He was 22 years old, and like I said previously, she was 11. Obviously, details around this are a little bit murky, but apparently the engagement fell through. Now, Edwin's response to this wasn't good. He snuck into their home in the middle of the night, and in an act of love and rage, as he's quoted saying, he raped and murdered this 11-year-old girl. He slit her throat with a razor blade and basically decapitated her. I can't even fathom that. I'm blown away by that. That is absolutely horrific. But ultimately, that was the very first death on record that happened in this location. There isn't a whole lot of details about how the family dealt with it. I do know that there was a trial with Edwin, and he was found guilty and, of course, prosecuted in the way that they would in the mid-18th century. So jumping a little bit forward, we're jumping now to 1866. Susan Arnold, who was actually the mother of Prudence, hung herself in the house much later. She was 93 years old, and she woke up one morning, she grabbed a rope, she threw it over one of the highest beams in the farmhouse, and she hung and killed herself. I wish that was the end, but that is not. That is only the beginning of the horrific events that happened in this house. Leading into that, the third death that is notable in this location is going to be in 1885. So it is a little bit more of a jump. It's a little bit more. The Arnolds are still in possession of this house at this point. There is a housemaid or a house worker. I don't entirely know what they would call it back then. I don't think she would be. I'm just gonna call her a maid, a handmaiden. How about that? So her name is Bathsheba Sherman. Ding, ding, ding. So if any of you have seen The Conjuring, this name is very, very notable. Basically, Bathsheba Sherman was accused of satanic witchcraft. She was accused of killing one of her infant babies with a knitting needle. They say that she stabbed it in the back of the head with a needle and it died. I just don't even know what to say about that. This didn't happen in the house. I will say that. This didn't happen in the house. Bathsheba did have 4 children, 3 of which died, which is, I don't know if that happened in today's day and age. I'm pretty sure Child Protective Services would be called. With that being said though, they did do an investigation about the infant who died, and she was found not guilty of it. Or they couldn't find any substantial evidence around it. This is just basically the records that I am looking at online, but she was never prosecuted for it. What did happen, however, was Bathsheba died in the house. She died of a stroke. So the next death, and we are at 4 now. 4 is Jarvis Smith. So this one's a little bit strange because he has no relation to the Arnolds whatsoever, and he doesn't have, any ties to them. He didn't work for them or anything like that. What happened with Jarvis Smith was he apparently lived in the area and he was just passing through their neighborhood and he dropped dead on their property of alcohol poisoning, which is very strange. I don't know, it could just be coincidence. I don't know. That's really strange to me. Like, you're just crossing your neighbor's yard and you just drop dead of alcohol poisoning. I don't know. They're alluding to it, and in the articles that I've alluded to, that the land is cursed, and that is what actually happened. He dropped dead from being on this land and having no connections to the Arnolds. So that was in 1901. That was now the fourth death. The fifth one is a descendant of the original Arnold family. His name is Edwin Arnold. And when I say descendant, I don't mean descendant. I mean he's like the son. He would have been Prudence's brother. He has now inherited the house and he is living there, and he's living there with his wife, and he has a family of his own. But Edwin Arnold, which is very strange, he froze to death on the property. If you look at his death certificate in the obituary, it says that he died of exposure. It was the middle of January. It's very, very cold. He froze to death. I think that this one is probably the weirdest one for me, because how do you just freeze to death outside of your own home? He died within 50 meters of his front door from exposure. I mean, there obviously aren't a lot of details, but it just seems very strange to me. How does that happen? Like, you're outside your own house. That is now the fifth death in this series of horrific events that have now happened at this farmhouse. So the deaths seem to kind of go in clumps from what I could tell. The next death is John Arnold. Now, this is the son of Edwin Arnold who froze to death. So it's now 1911 and he has hung himself. What is very strange about this is that it's reported that John Arnold hung himself in the exact same location that his great-grandmother did. I don't know, it's possible that he knew where his grandmother had hung herself, but I just don't see how that would come up in everyday normal conversation. Like, hey son, this is where your grandma hung herself. Like, I just don't see that happening. But who knows, stranger things have happened. But I just found that as weird. It just seems very coincidental, a little bit too coincidental. So that is now the sixth death in this home. So from 1911, when John Arnold hung himself, to 1971, when the Perrin family moved in, there isn't much information. I don't know if it remained vacant because the Arnolds are now all deceased, or what really happened there. If I do find out more information about that, I will do a follow-up to this video and report that. But we are now jumping from that sixth death in 1911 to 1971, when the Perrin family moved in. Now, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the Perrin family, because if you want to know the full details, there are several books out there on it, and the Conjuring movie, which, like I said before, is allegedly based very much on fact. So with that, there are some notable things that happen when the Perrin family moved in. That is also when the Warrens are introduced to this location, and they come into the home to try and help this family with the paranormal experiences that they've been having. This is when Lorraine Warren first mentions Bathsheba's name, which I think is crazy. Like, I mean, I guess it wouldn't be too hard to do some research on the property before you got there, but I don't know, I just found that super interesting that, Bathsheba, who was accused of satanic witchcraft and killing her infant child with a knitting needle, is now being brought up into this as the ghost that is haunting this location. It would make sense. The Perron family actually stays there for 10 years. When you look into the history of why they stayed there so long, considering all of the horrible things that they said they were experiencing, including possession of their mother, their answer is that they could not afford to move out of that location. And, you know, fair. Like, who am I to say that they were in a position to move out? Personally, like, if my mother had been possessed and I was experiencing even half of what they were experiencing, I would not live there. I would go somewhere else. But again, like, it is fair. They do say, like, you know, they had 5 kids. Who's gonna take in 5, you know, children plus the parents for an undeterminable amount of time? Like, it is a lot to ask your friends and family and such. So fast forward 10 years of the Perron family living in this house. They finally sell it, they get their fresh start, and they sell it to a Miss Norma Sutcliffe and her husband, Gerald. Now, this is where it kind of gets a little bit speculative, I guess, on my part, but Norma Sutcliffe says that there's nothing there. She adamantly denies that there's any paranormal activity going on there whatsoever. She says that she hasn't experienced anything. What I find very strange about that, though, is in the time that she's lived there, which is from 1987 to 2019, last year, in that time she has people come out to the location, and I don't know if maybe she was approached because, you know, the Conjuring movie was made about her house, but she has like the ghost hunters out there, and that's like, I actually like that show. Make fun of me if you do, but I do like that show, and it's season 2 episode 7, which I'm actually gonna watch very soon. I should have watched it before I filmed this, but for somebody who is adamantly denying that there's paranormal activity going on in her house, why would you have a team of paranormal investigators come into your house? I don't know, maybe to disprove it, but the ironic thing is the team of paranormal investigators for ghost hunters actually comes in and finds paranormal activity, much to her surprise. They have, like, you know, a closet door slamming, they have disembodied voices going on, and they tell her, hey, this is what's going on in your house, and she is shocked. Another thing too is she reports that she notices, like, you know, vibrating of her bed. She notices door handles kind of shaking. So it's like you're reporting that you're not experiencing paranormal activity, but then you're describing it. So like, I just, no offense to her. I'm sure she, you know, she truly believes that she's not experiencing anything. It just seems a little bit odd to me too. Another thing that is a little bit strange about it is her husband dies in this time. Now I get it, it's a stretch of time, you know, 1987 to 2019. I get it, but this is now going to be the 7th death in this location in the last 80 years. What is so strange about it is her husband dies of a stroke. Now I don't know if you guys remember, but that is how Bathsheba died, of a stroke in that home. I don't know, maybe I'm stretching a little bit into connecting the dots, but it just seems very strange. There's been 7 deaths in this house, and they have all revolved around suicide, strokes, and then of course the really, really horrible one with burdens. But, you know, like, we're human beings. We are very fragile. We die in so many different ways. So she has now sold the house. The house has been sold. It was sold in 2019. She sold it to Corey and Jennifer Heinzen. Now, Corey and Jennifer are paranormal investigators, and since buying the house and moving into it, they have reported to local news stations, to local reporters, that they are still experiencing a lot of paranormal activity in it. They are experiencing a lot of the stuff that the Perron family had claimed, Now, this leads me to my very exciting news, and I'm so excited to tell you guys about this, but Corey and Jennifer Heinzen are setting up a live feed for you to stream. They have set up cameras all throughout the farmhouse, and you can go on to the website. It's in Dark Zone TV. I will put the link down here for you guys. They are going to be setting up a live stream of this house 24 hours a day. So we can sit here in the comfort of our own homes during COVID and watch what happens in this house. So the live feed starts on May 9th. I am going to be joining on the very, very first day. I think that if anything really crazy happens, it's going to be on the first day. I am so excited for it. I hope that you guys will join me. There is a fee for it, but it's minor. I think it's $3.99 to watch the entire live streaming saga, and they'll be doing this for a week, so you can pick any day that you want to. If you're just hanging out at home, got nothing better to do, why don't you just throw on the Conjuring live feed? Check it out. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me for this video. If you guys have any comments or questions about what I shared today, please comment down below. I would love to hear from you. And if you do check out the live feed, please let me know as well. Let me know what day you're jumping on. Maybe I can join you in it and we can talk about what we see on there. Anyways, that's it for me tonight. Stay creepy, my friends.